So today we're going to go through a few tunes from a group called the Goose Island Ramblers, and most notably, it was Bruce Bullerud. Bruce Bullerud, he lived. It actually only died a few years ago, so 1934 to 2020. He was born on a farm near Hollandale. So anyone who's gone to the Folklore Village in Dodgeville, that Hollandale is not too far from there. This is a very southwestern tip of Wisconsin, and it's very much in the Driftless and very Norwegian area. And he, of course, grew up surrounded by music from the Norwegian American old-time dance tradition. And now, he played a bunch of instruments. He did the bandoneon, piano, accordion, trombone, and jug, and he also sang. So talk about having a lot of different instruments. He gigged with a lot of different bands throughout his time as a musician, and he played with a lot of other local musicians, but the best known band that he was in was called the Goose Island Ramblers, and he was a founding member. And this was a three-piece band. It was made up of Bruce. His nickname was Loose Bruce the Goose. So they did a lot of Scandinavian humor, you can tell already. K. Wendell Whitford, and we'll be doing a lot of his tunes. His nickname was Uncle Windy. And Wendell grew up in south of Stoughton, so south of Madison. His claim to fame is that he learned a lot of his music from his grandfather, who was born in 1849. And Windy died in 2000. So the generational reach that Windy had was pretty spectacular. So as a boy, he was learning fiddle from his grandfather. So the cool thing about Windy is that he knew some really old fiddle tunes from the area. So I enjoy a lot of Windy's music just because of that. And George Gilbertson, they called him Smokey George. I'm not sure why. I'm assuming he smoked. I don't know. Anyway, so Smokey George. So it was Bruce, Uncle Windy, and Smokey George. So those are kind of the three icons in South, in South Central Wisconsin. They were house bands at two taverns in Madison. So they kind of all grew up in the more rural areas, but then lived in Madison. And so they had two taverns in Madison that they played at a lot. It's called Glenn and Ann's and Johnny's Packer Inn. Both of these bars are still there during the 60s and 70s, and they wrote a lot of their own music. They did a lot of like country western, a lot of Scandinavian humor. There's just kind of their own eclectic kind of a sound, and so they were featured in a lot of documentaries and radio programs. And Bruce ended up writing a couple of books of accordion music. He did International Accordion Favorites, and the book that we're going to talk about a little more called Oofda Let's Dance, Scandinavian tunes and house party music. So they were featured, and I'm going to give you some of these. I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste all of this good stuff. So they were featured in a book by James Leary from the University of Wisconsin called Polkabilly. And he did extensive research on the music they played, because it was this eclectic blend of music they wrote, music that they parodied, Scandinavian humor, and tunes they collected from their childhoods and did the traditional stuff. So it was a really fun blend, and they got this kind of great sort of college following. So it's like, so there are tunes that, and most notably, No Norwegians in Dickeyville, that are still sung today, and it's kind of the one that we're always asked to do. So I put all those research links in in the chat. So this is essentially there's a lot written about the group. There's also at the UW Mills Library, they have the Bruce Bullerud collection. So there's interviews and pictures and some more information on them there as well. So at any rate, so this is a group that obviously because the Scandiam Jam is right in Madison. I even figured it out. We are like less than 2 miles from where the Goose Island Ramblers hung out. Like we're like we're like the epicenter of Goose Island Rambler country. So of course, we had to learn Goose Island Rambler tunes, and it was also really cool. And I don't know if all the band members from the Scandi MGM knew this, but every year we do a barn dance with the university. They hire us to do this barn dance. The children of Wendy Whitford and Smokey George came to that dance, and they were practically in tears because they were enjoying it so much, and just said this is the music they loved, this is what they remembered, this was the tradition, and they were so thrilled that people were still playing it. So at any rate, it was kind of really cool that I during the break I go look over and I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. We got the Goose Island Rambling family here. So, and yeah, they were just having the best time. So they're all in their 70s, and so they weren't out dancing, but they were sitting there just really enjoying the music. So apparently we've kind of nailed the authenticity. So we're trying, we're working at it. So what I wanted to do was kind of go through some of these tunes, and let's see, I wonder if I can attach it. We'll just go ahead and do this, and I can send out all the links again afterwards. But I've got the we'll put up the music. I also did a YouTube playlist on this. One of the things that I noticed though was that there weren't very many of these tunes out on YouTube, so I recorded a bunch of them in my basement, just like getting them out for you. So as I'm able to re-record, get better recordings with a group, that kind of thing, to get these tunes up. But I guess I was surprised that even though this music has been published, that there wasn't more, there weren't more YouTube videos out. So this will be one of my new goals, is to get more of the Goose Island Rambler traditional music, out on YouTube, because it certainly is fun. All right, you guys ready to play? I know I am. Okay, so I'm going to have you mute yourselves, and we're going to, I suppose I should hit share first. That always helps. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start with, uh-oh. I am screen sharing. I can't see my screen though. Okay, I'm going to stop the share. For some reason I was sharing, and then all of a sudden I couldn't see my screen. There we go. You guys can see it? All right, so this tune is called Abner Juvie's Waltz, and one of the links that I had given you in the chat is to a book called Ufta, House Party Scandinavian. Well, I never get the whole thing. At any rate, the Ufta collection from Bruce Bullerite. One of the cool things about getting the book, it's all written in accordion. First of all, it's all written for accordion. So the first thing I figured out was like, okay, I could just play the melody line, and that was great. But man, it all seemed really low and growly to me. So I was like, oh, yeah, because it's accordion. So I took everything up an octave, and I'm like, well, that sounds more like it. So at any rate, so I believe everything is for the fiddle in the accordion book is actually taken up an octave. So try that. I think it'll work for you. The cool thing is that there's a lot of information that Bruce gives about these tunes. Unfortunately, we're learning more information about the tunes. So he wrote down what he knew at the time, and so of course, because we're just constantly, what is going on? All right. I'm going to do something different. Okay. Anyway, sorry. This is just me. My screen keeps flipping back and forth. I'm like, what am I looking at? Okay, so in the book, he said that Abner Juvie was a musician who played this tune, and that would have been a really good guess because so many of these tunes are like, this is the waltz that Abner Juvie played. Well, I found out that one of the bass players that comes and plays with us actually did play with Wendy Whitford in his later years, and she said, nah. She said Abner was a dancer who every time they would play at the senior center in Stoughton, he would come up to the band and ask for this waltz. And she says, so this waltz really has another name, and we don't know what it is. But the band just started calling it Abner Juvie's Waltz. So it was just because this guy asked for it all the time. So this became his waltz, you know. So I actually thought that was an even better story. But so at any rate, so Abner Juby's waltz comes from the Stoughton area, and we just think of our favorite dancers when we play this waltz. Nothing tricky in this one. So nice, sweet little waltz in D. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So, nice, sweet little waltz. Great way to start a Saturday morning. So, I can see why Abner requested it. Alrighty, let's go on to the next one. Okay, Dickeyville. All right, so this is the one. All right, I'm going to put the words just in case you want to sing them. So this is the one that this was their claim to fame. This is the tune that they wrote. Actually, they wrote the lyrics in South Central Wisconsin. This is the one that everyone will ask us to play. And I have now learned that everyone has their own version, and they play it in all different keys. So you play it in whatever key your singer can sing it in. So I've seen G, C, D. G, C, D. So kind of depends on what range your singer has. I've also seen different lyrics. So Wendy Whitford wrote the lyrics to this, but these are the lyrics that the Folklore Village then adapted. So it's one of those songs. You just have to keep adding more. You start singing it, and I heard one guy, a dancer, he'll sing like 10 different verses to the song that he's just made up because it's just too much fun, right? And it's all just poking fun, local humor in Wisconsin. So what the whole story apparently was that the band was going to do a gig in Dickeyville. And Dickeyville is a small town in very southwestern Wisconsin, really just outside of Iowa. And they said something about needing to play for like a Norwegian tune or something, whatever. They got into this topic about Norwegians. And so Bruce then just laughed and said, well, there aren't any Norwegians in Dickeyville. And so they took this waltz, which is actually a Swedish waltz, and they started on the way to the gig, started making up funny lyrics to the No Norwegians in Dickeyville. Now, if you were like me and took the history of Wisconsin in 6th grade, the reason you would get the joke is because this is the part of the state where every little town has its own nationality. And that's the part of the state, the very oldest part of the state, where all the lead miners came. So that was sort of the origins of Wisconsin, as they all came to that part of the state to mine lead for bullets, basically. And so it was Cornish. So it's a very Cornish part of the state because that's where the lead miners came from. So you totally get the fact, and there's certainly other parts in the Midwest as well, that there's little towns that you know for a fact that there are no people of that particular ethnic group because they aren't there. They're in the other town over. So because they didn't say that. Yeah. So when you know the history at any rate, so it's kind of just poking some fun at the fact that state like Wisconsin still has very distinct ethnic groups that still stayed in all those little towns. So they took this tune, and that's even better that he took a Swedish tune for no Norwegians in Dickeyville. This is great. So this is the actual waltz itself. Um, and so sometimes people play the entire waltz. Usually the song only takes the A part. And they just kind of go back and forth in the A part. And I think in the YouTube version, I put the version in. And the best part, I've been told by Wendy's daughter that she always thought that the best part of this tune was at the very end. Her dad would always say, "Poor Dickieville." And it comes through in the recording. At any rate, so we try to make sure that we do that, every time. So I don't think it says that at the end, but that's the authentic, is that you have to feel sorry for Dickieville because they have no Norwegians. So let's go ahead and play this as a waltz. It's like, well, let's see, the A part is sort of written out, and then the B part, it's 2 times through. So, and this is, because I had to decide on a version, this is a version from Folklore Village, because I figured they had, I had to have somebody's authentic version, because there isn't an authentic version apparently. So this is a great tune to make up all the verses you would like to it. So, all right. Alrighty. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So you can see you can go on and on and on and have fun with that. And, when you play it, if you play it in a group, I've played it where it's just been the A part. I've played it where we've gone back and forth between, like, the singer does the A part and then we do the instrumental B part. And, you can kind of or you just take an instrumental break, make up your own verses. It's an example of that kind of Norwegian humor, the Scandinavian humor that the band was pretty famous for. But if you hang out in Madison and you say that you play Scandinavian music, they will ask for this tune and they will sing along. That's the best part. So they'll sing along. Oh, goodness. Okay, this one is called Grandpa's Waltz, and this one, again, came from Wendy Whitford, and so I am presuming that when it's hard to know whether he actually meant his grandpa, the guy who was born in 1849 south of Madison, or if this was just a tune that he picked up from the area, because he hung out with all the old-time fiddlers in the Stoughton area, so he could have picked it up from another fiddler. But it's somebody's grandpa's waltz, and it's kind of a sweet one. We like it. And you could tell their repertoire is really waltz heavy. That is a very classic, just a very classic style for this kind of music. Lots more waltzes than you see in a lot of the other old time music. So, alrighty, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. you'll notice, because I pulled this right out of the book that Bruce wrote, so I just pulled it right out of there and I just put everything up an octave. But then I noticed as I'm playing through this that he didn't really put down like a first and second ending in his. So it looks like it's a crooked waltz. It's not. It's all 8 measures. That last little measure there, you just kind of, your brain has to ignore it. Just go back to the beginning. That's really his tag at the end. So it took me a while to figure that out. So rewrite this music, put a note on it, what have you. But that's just Bruce's little way of noting that there's a tag at the end. So, but he's not doing anything in this collection. There isn't anything that's crooked. Okay. All right, Little Gem Polka. So this is kind of a fun one. I think some of you might know this one. So in the book, he wrote this down as Elmando's Polka, which seemed like an odd name. And it took us a while to figure this out. So he called it Elmando's Polka. But when you play it, you know it's Little Gem Polka. So it turns out that he got this tune from Orlando Benson, a fiddle player in Mabel, Minnesota. And he must have just misheard the guy's name or misremembered it, so he wrote it down as Elmando. But Orlando Benson from Mabel played this tune because it's a tune that comes from the Decorah. We know it mostly from the Decorah area, and Mabel is about 15 miles north of Decorah. So it makes more sense that he picked it up from Orlando because he's got some other tunes from Orlando as well. So it's a Little Gem Polka. Leroy Larson, who was an early collector of a lot of this music, he got his PhD and he's an ethnomusicologist. He also published this tune, and he published it in C. And C is just a bear to play in fiddle. So a lot of people didn't play this tune because the string crossings are just kind of nuts. He was not a fiddler, so he put it in C. So I don't know how he picked it up in C or what have you, but from what I understand, he's the only one who ever put it in C. When Bruce put it in G and you play it in G, if you're a fiddler, it just it fits in the hand a whole lot better. Beth Hovenrado has like a fancier version of this. This is kind of the basic version. It has a much fancier version of this. But she's done a lot of research on this, and she can't figure out exactly where the tune came from. So I've been perseverating on this because, you know, it's a mystery. So my latest take on this is because I'm hearing this in other source recordings. My latest take on this may be something that's a completely different genre. This might be like a German brass band march that got turned into a polka. And when I listen to it, that seems to be making more sense to me, that it came from another nationality as more of a march, and I'm hearing marches getting turned into polkas by fiddlers, and so this is my latest theory. So it may just stay a theory, we may never know. But to me it sounds like a circus calliope. So this is where I'm thinking it may not be something that came from Norway. It may be it just sounded nice and the fiddlers liked it and so they played it. But hey, we don't march around here, but we do polka, so let's do it as a polka. So, any rate, it's a fun one. It is a little trickier one too, so it's kind of fun to have. A lot of the polkas tend to be rather simple. This one has a little more technical challenge to it and has a little more interest to it. So, any rate, fun one to add to the repertoire. All right, Little Gem Polka. I won't take it too fast because we got a lot of that dun dun yada da da dun dun yada da da, and I just slide. I do a lot of sliding. I think it adds to the vibe. All right. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. and you might have noticed, and I've talked about this before, like I hit those half notes. But in order to get my bow, because I'm just, one of those people that has to always kind of do that down, I always just come up with a little return, and it adds that kind of rhythmic element anyways, and keeps me from rushing. So, so I'll split it, or I'll do it more like a dotted, whatever. Yeah, kind of like I'll do it a little different every time. So, and of course it goes faster than that. And I do have on YouTube, I do have a version of Beth playing this, and so it's a fast, peppy polka, and it has a little more technicality to it, but I think it adds a lot of interest. So I really like this one. I like it way better in G. You're more than welcome to tackle it in C, and perhaps your instrument does work well in C, but I tell you, if you're doing fiddle or mandolin, you're probably going to appreciate the G. And if you have a guitar, you have a capo, so whatever, So do what you need to do. All right, but if anyone has any insight on whether you think maybe this is just one of those that came from a different ethnic group, or maybe it came over like Jenny Lind. Maybe it's like a Jenny Lind, right? And just got, I don't know, something like that. And the Norwegians all said, "Hey, this is fun," and called it something else. So, all righty.
Could this have come via the circus with Baraboo being the headquarters of the Ringling Brothers Circus?
You know what? And maybe that's why because I'm kind of in, like in that whole, we got the circus vibe going on around here in Portage. We're close to Baraboo. So yeah, and maybe that's why I don't know. Am I the only one that hears like a calliope, like like the circus parade going by, and this is the calliope playing this, or the, the carousel playing this while the horses are I don't know. I kind of hear it like circus music. So, okay, we're hearing it as circus music. I haven't lost my mind. So, good. Yeah, so which wouldn't be Norwegian. Well, okay. All right, that's two different questions. Does it sound like circus? Has Mary Pat lost her mind? That's two different. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's a second question. Yeah. So I'm thinking that might be so, because they seem to have exhausted the research as to is this a Norwegian tune from Decorah? And so I'm thinking, well, maybe we need to pull a different thread. That it really just got one of those tunes that just got folk processed. So cool. But yeah, I thought about that too, Charlie, that I was wondering, because the circus was such a big deal in this part of the world, that maybe. All right. So speaking of tunes that are probably not part of this tradition, the next one is Mabel Rag Two-Step, and this also came from Orlando Benson and Johan Solin, the Mabel Boys. And this one, I have it in two different keys. You can decide. I actually think this is one of those cases where F is easier. Because the fingerings are just easier on the fiddle. But if your instrument likes it better in D, you can certainly do that. But we're going to play it in F because, yeah, it just fits the hand, and so it fits the hand better. So I am sure this is just some ragtime tune that somebody picked up and decided it was great and turned it into a two-step. And we're finding that this happens, this happened a lot in this music. And I was just reading a book on Missouri music and found out that it happened a lot in Missouri as well. So just another one of those fun little ones, and it looks more complicated than it is. That's why it's very satisfying, because you can sound really good on this fairly quickly on the fiddle, and sound very snazzy. So we won't take it too fast. And two steps don't go too fast, so it's dum ba dum da da da. They're kind of this laid back dum da dum da da. They're just slightly slower than a polka, with a little more of a jazzy feel to them. So, bum ba da da dum dun da dum da 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 dum da dum da dum dum. So, all right. Let's play it through a few times and see. It's just a lot of fun syncopation. So 1, 2, 1, 2. right. I am thinking that I added a measure in there. And I think it's right. At the very end of the A part, the second time through, I think I held that a little longer, but it sounded correct. Do how you like. It's ragtime. So it just seemed like I should hold that another beat. Dun, dun, dun. I think I just added in another, I think I held it another two beats. So. Any rate, but have some fun with it. It's just a fun little, lively little two-step, and you can add some little fun elements. So I like this one. I think it's a cute one. Alrighty, Old Utica Waltz. So I had a couple versions out there. I cleaned this one up a bit. This one is, I was playing this in the lower octave, which is how it was written for the accordion. And this was the first tune where I realized that I think the whole book should be up an octave for the fiddle. Any rate, so this is the version that just in the higher octave. But if you want a variation, play it down an octave. You can certainly do that. So if you want to play it through once, higher octave, and then play it again, lower octave. So this is a waltz that came from a small town that's just south of Madison called Utica. So it should not be confused with the Utica waltz that I believe is in the old time tradition. I don't know if it's a common tune in old time, but there is a Utica waltz. That would come from New York. This Utica is actually named after the Utica from New York because it was people from New York who came and named the town, right? So it's another Utica. But this one came from the house parties in the Utica area and was picked up by Wendy Whitford. So another sweet waltz. So, okay. Alrighty. Old Utica. We'll give Bonnie a second here to, yeah, there we go. Old Utica waltz. Ba-da-dum-bum-bum-bum. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Sweet Waltz. This is one that I have put together with Abner Juvie's waltz and done like a waltz set. Because this is kind of like before we were talking about polkas and putting them in sets. These waltzes are really sweet, but a lot of them are kind of short. And so to give a little more interest to the dancers or to your performance, I've been putting some of these in sets. And so Abner Juvie's and Old Utica, I think, works well together. But there's probably a lot of pairings of these waltzes that would work together in sets. Again, because otherwise for a dance, you're playing it over and over and over and over, to get enough times around. Or for a performance, again, same thing. So by adding these, it adds a little more interest, I think. All right, let's see what we got next. Red Rooster Two-Step. Okay, this is another one that I love it. Let's put this a little. I love this one. Um, I'm the only one who plays it. Me and Wendy. And he's not with us anymore, so it's me. It's left to me. Any rate, so I have been looking at this one. I even had Beth Havenratto take a look at this one, and she's like, "What am I looking at?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what I thought." And so she thought, and there might be some truth to this. She thought this was just a mashup of some ragtime tunes, and so it could very well be. But the history on this tune is that apparently at a band rehearsal for the Goose Island Ramblers, Wendy just started playing this tune. And Bruce like, "Well, we haven't heard you play this tune before." And they played together for years. "We haven't heard this one." He goes, "Oh, yeah, this is called the Red Rooster Two-Step." And he started playing it for him. And so then they added that to their group. So it was one of those that just kind of popped in his head that he remembered. And so he didn't know a whole lot about where it came from or what the history on this was. But it's kind of a fun one, and I like it because the B part has the A minor. So it goes from the C to the A minor. And so it's kind of fun to have that kind of change. And when I first started playing this, I played it way too fast. And so now I better understand the whole two-step kind of tempo. And so I have, thankfully I have started to slow it down a little bit and give it a little bit more of a vibe. For the fiddlers in the audience, when it comes to the C part, it doesn't look terribly complicated, but in that there's that high part. No, that isn't the high part, but you get up to that E, so it's, and then you need to do E to E flat to E to E flat. Right, really, yeah. So I shift. So I put it the second finger. I do shift up there to be able to do that. You could just ignore it. It's really more like an ornamentation. You could just play some E's and go on with your day. So you you don't have to like not play the whole tune just because that one measure is kind of messing you up. But so that's how I do that one. I'm gonna play it through with you just straight at the first time. But this is one that I actually did as a contest piece. And so I added a whole lot of double stops to it. So the first time I'm just going to play it through, and then I will see if I can add in all my, or at least all the double stops I can remember. How's that? From back in my days of doing contests. So this is and I don't know if people are doing contests much anymore, but this is kind of a fun tune of choice, especially because it's 3-part and changes keys, and the double stops are fun. And it's not one that anyone else will play. You hate to play the same tune that the person before you or after you plays. So this is a guarantee that will not happen. All right. Da da dum bum ba da 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 dum ba da dum bum ba da da da. We'll take it to kind of a nice, relaxed tempo. Okay. 1, 2, 1. always a fun one to learn if you're looking for kind of a unique little performance tune. And so, like I said, I always like picking those tunes because there's so little minor in the Scandi Am tradition. The Scandinavian tradition, there's minor music, but in the Scandi Am tradition, there isn't a lot of minor tunes, and so it's always fun when they do have a few that switch to that minor. So, all right, this might be Ryerson's. Okay. All right, this version I got from Bill Foley in our group from the Mount Horeb area. So Ryerson, you can see Ryerson. Okay, so again, spelling just apparently isn't our forte in Wisconsin. So it's actually Reierson. Clarence Ryerson was an old-time fiddler from Stoughton. He passed away in the 70s, but Wendy Whitford picked up a lot of tunes from him. Apparently, he was a very, and we have a number. This is the Ryerson, let me see, Ryerson two-step. We have the Ryerson hop waltz, and we have some Ryerson's polka. We have some other ones in our collection as well. But this is one that Bill has played, when he's been playing around in the Mount Horeb area, and it's one that Wendy played as well. At any rate, but it comes from, this is, again, comes from those fiddlers that Wendy had learned from. So, and it is a, and I think he did it as a two-step, but honestly, you could play it a little faster and do it as a polka pretty easily. So this is one that probably is fairly interchangeable and quite honestly could be played. It may have even been a polka and they just decided to play it as a two-step. You know how it is, these tunes, they were pretty interchangeable. They got really flexible as to how they played them, kind of what they needed for the dance, what they felt like playing at the time. So all right, so for our eighth and final tune of the day, Clarence Ryerson, Reierson. And now the problem is it's been out as Ryerson so much that I think we just have to give two names to the tune. I think we just have to put the double name, because if you look up Clarence Ryerson, it in the book Polkabilly that I gave the links to earlier that James Leary did about the band, he does spell it correctly and he gives a lot of information about Clarence. So at any rate, but we may just have to give two names to the tune because these things happen. It wouldn't be the first time in old time music where someone's name got misspelled or misunderstood. So ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum bum bum. And this is written as straight, but we do kind of do it a little more bouncy. Yeah. And I think Bill then tried to write it with a little bit of a a bounce in the B part. So yeah, it's just basically when it goes comes around again. So yeah, it just kind of swing the eighths. So okay, 1 and 2 and 1 2. There we go. All right, we got through all of them. Yay. Nice, nice, nice. Okay. So yeah, they're fun, they're easy, they're happy. We were playing at we play at Muso Madison, which is a new facility in Madison where the owners just have opened this up just for jams, and they have all kinds of different kinds of musical jams throughout the week. And they kind of hang around while we're playing. And the woman, it's a partnership. At any rate, the woman, one of the women owners, afterwards, she said, "I just love it when your group comes and plays because all the music is so happy." It's like, yeah, yeah. So she must have been listening to all those sea shanties or something. So, at any rate, but yeah, she's just happy and perky, and it is. And even Bruce in his book, when he was he was asked, it was like an interview question answer kind of thing that they have at the beginning of his book, the UFTA book. He's asked, like, why is everything in a major key? It's like, why is it not and he said that everybody, when they got here and they became successful, they were just so happy to be here that the music is all happy music. And I'm like, all right, well, that's a good explanation. Debbie, you have a question.
Yeah, could you please spell Ryerson's correctly and slowly?
Okay, I could put it, should I put it in the chat? Reierson.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Clarence. So if you, yeah. Yeah, that's half the challenge of doing research in this music. When we talked about this in the Elmo Wick program that I did a while ago, was that Elmo Wick just kept misspelling everything. So you try researching stuff. He's misspelling English and he's misspelling Norwegian, and it's really hard to research. Because Google's just not all that forgiving. So, at any rate, so when you finally get the correct spelling, then you're like, oh, yeah, there you go. There you go. So, but yeah, so he said the music was all just very, was happy because, he said everyone was just really happy to, be in the United States and be in America and, have land. And they kind of came from, they had, had to have some desperate situations in order to leave a country, take that long trip and get to where they were, and they were just happy to be here, so all the tunes were happy. The other thing that we noticed, and we've talked about before, is that a lot of times they would take sections of one tune and then put it in another. There was a lot of this kind of mixing and matching of A and B parts of a lot of tunes, and his take on that was that, well, you were working all summer long, and so you were only playing in the winter, and you had to remember all these tunes, right? So you'd gone, your immigrant family had to remember all this stuff. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that gets lost in the memory, and then you're only playing in the winter months. And so you have 6 months where you're not practicing. So at any rate, so a lot of this is just lapses in memory. So they're picking up these snippets of stuff that they remember. And so then they were like, oh, well, this sounds good. So they put them, I think it goes to here. So there's a lot of this folk processing that happens by the second and third generation because so we play these tunes and we're like, well, this sounds close, but, or we find the same snippet of a tune in 5 different tunes under 5 different names. And so that's why. It's because it's just all about the practicality of being an immigrant and kind of just, coming here with, not being able to like bring tune books. In fact, one band in the Driftless area was so enthralled with studying and learning the music of their Norwegian heritage that they wrote back to Norway and ordered tune books so that they could learn the tunes. It's like, that's the Bertson, the Bertson fair. That's it. So it's like, so it's like, oh, this is how it goes. Oh, this is the name. So it was like, so they were buying these, and apparently in the Twin Cities they were selling, Scandinavian tune books because people were like, oh, there you go. That's the tune that Grandpa was trying to remember. And so it helped refresh their memories and kind of help, give them some history. But it was really the second and third generation that were buying tune books, so they knew what the heck it was that their family was playing. So tune books are part of this generation, part of this music. They always have been used as a reference. So it's always been a combination of tune books and ear learning. So it's an oral and tune book tradition, and probably the tune book. Just like I said, the whole frustration of what in the world are you playing, Grandpa? This is making no sense to me whatsoever. Well, I can't remember. So anyway, yeah. So I think it's a kind of a combination of the two. So Questions? Any more questions on this stuff? This is fun stuff. I love the Goose Island Ramblers, and I love the eclecticness. It's like they're singing country western one time, and there's playing an old Norwegian tune next. It's like, yeah, they just were a very eclectic band. So I'm sure they would have been a lot of fun to watch back in the day.